Welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, where history meets prophecy. I'm Elder Michael.
And I am Officer Charmaine.
This is an excellent opportunity, Officer Charmaine, for us to shed some light on a very dark, hidden secret.
Yes,
Go for it.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, but first of all, before we begin our wonderful discussion today, which is based on drugs and deception, I just want to welcome all of our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And this is an interactive session, so we are looking forward to your questions, your comments, your concerns. And if you do want more information at the end of this, or if you would like to join us, do not forget that we have a form at the bottom. You can just fill it out and then somebody will get back to you. So, Order
Take it,
Michael,
take it
it's
away. I'm going to let you take it away.
wonderful, wonderful. I just want a few shout outs because I see people do this and I think it's such a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And also just to acknowledge all our, everybody that follows us on a regular basis. We really do appreciate your views and your interaction. And I just want to say welcome Arnetta, Shelby, Veronica C. Fields, Angela, Angel, Karen, Shelby, Patricia, Jay. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are going to have a great session. So we are talking about drugs and deception, and I know we have a couple of experts online, so I hope they would, really put their comments in to, really enhance this discussion, because we do have a few experts. I saw their names as we were reading it. So drugs and deception, and this is quite a touchy one because, when we talk about drugs, people automatically think, the negative aspect of drugs. But, there is an understanding that we do need medication to help us. Some of us, we have different illness or different ailments, and we do need to have the medication that we have, right? So don't stop taking your medication. From what you hear, don't do any of that stuff. You consult with your doctors and follow their instructions. Okay.
You're
So
absolutely right, Officer Charmaine, because
yeah.
one of the things I like about what we do at the
Mhm.
Israelite Nation is we're not fanatics. We,
That's
we
right.
we try to use our common sense. It's very important that we think clearly and put things in the proper perspective without,
That's
like, we don't just throw people under the bus because they are, they don't agree with us, so to speak.
yes.
Oh, JM, thank you for the
Oh,
donation.
yes. Thank you so much. Wow.
Appreciate
Thank you for
that.
your support. Really appreciate it. Thank
Yes,
you.
go ahead.
Yes. No, as you're saying, Elder Michael, you're absolutely correct. We are not fanatics.
Yeah.
We understand that we are living in today's world. Things have changed over the years, over the centuries. The foods that we eat are different from the foods that we used to eat way back when. In addition to the medication, sometimes the natural stuff doesn't work the way it used to work because the medication itself is not conducive to our bodies, or maybe our bodies have enhanced in such a way that those natural drugs do not work. So
Yeah, and moreover, it is we are trying to produce or to create the best individual
mhm,
that is available because we have, I mean, like, one of these days we're going to have to do a presentation on the slave, the effect of slavery as far as our psychological behavior is concerned,
mhm,
because a lot of us still suffer from that tragedy, and we don't really express it properly. We may look like, let's say we get involved with drugs, for example, as a kind of um, method of soothing that fierce and harshness. But the point I'm trying to make here is there is a better way, and we are trying to put the pieces together to allow that individual, or, I mean, we all been through it. I mean, you have been through it, I've been through it, so we have to find or share with our audience what we know works for us so that they could look and see if it works for them.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So one of the reasons why we're bringing this up, I mean, there are several reasons, and I'm sure there are, some of the reasons are very obvious. Now,
Yes.
a couple of years ago, places like Canada and certain states in the US have legalized the use of marijuana
Hmm.
as a medicinal, in addition to recreational um, substance.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot more people are gravitating towards that, maybe not really understanding the full impact it has, especially on the children of Jacob, especially to our spiritual health. And this is something that we really need to dig down on. We're not here to shame or blame anybody, but we
Hmm.
just want to highlight some of the things that is currently happening and how it can affect us, and how it has affected us over time.
Yes.
So yeah, and it's really unfortunate as well, because our people, such a great and talented people,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's just so sad to see, other people take advantage of us, of our talents, of our abilities, of our strengths. But it's even more disheartening when you see somebody hurting themselves. It's like no one is even hurting you, but you're hurting yourself because of all that's out there. I'm for one, I believe that everybody should be responsible for themselves anyway. So whatever you do is your business. But at the same time, I think it's really important to understand what you are getting into. That is the big concern.
And most importantly, though, it is that we as a people, we are supposed to lead and not follow.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say that you can't take ideas. I steal a lot of ideas from the internet, okay? But when at the final result, I could take a book 300 pages off the internet and make it 5 pages, all my idea, because that author, who he or she was, had a good concept that I feel I could improve on. So it is not like you can't share ideas, but and the final analysis, we have to make the final decision. That's the important point we're trying to communicate today. Lead and not follow.
Okay, so drugs and deception.
Yes.
Let's go to the first slide.
Hmm.
So, a lot of people, there are some sects in society that believe that, we should use, or we have the ability to use, or we can use any substance that's out there, any plants, any herbs, any shrubs, any food, because it's all been put there for our use. And one of the scriptures that some people actually gravitate towards is
Genesis 1:29.
exactly.
Yes.
And it says here, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Okay, I hear you laugh, Elder Michael. There's more scriptures
Yes.
like this.
I
Why is
have to
he
laugh.
laughing?
I have to laugh because some people use this to justify the smoking of
Oh,
the
hold on
herb.
a sec, though. But I didn't say anything about smoking.
Exactly. That's my point. That's my point. So, I mean, to justify, the word is meat. Meat is food, right? So, how does that, justify, come together? I don't know how they do that. But again, we're not here to criticize, we're here to educate. So, the point we're making is, don't use that scripture to justify your behavior if you're
Yeah.
smoking weed or smoking herbs.
Yes, right, absolutely, because that's not what it says here, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. As you said, Elder Michael, we've mentioned this many times. Even our elder, he brought the concept to us, the basic understanding that the book that we read, the King James 11 version of the Bible, where this particular quote is actually from, is about Israelites for Israelites, written by Israelites.
Yes.
So when you're looking at that, you need an Israelite in order to teach this.
That's the point.
So if you are a Christian, for example, and you're teaching this, you are not going to get the right message. You are not going to relay the correct message. Actually, you're going to deceive the masses, because that's what Christianity is all about. We're not
So
talking
this is the perfect example of
deception.
as to why no one outside our Israelite family should be
Mhm.
teaching from the Bible, because you cannot connect with the Almighty Spirit of all spirits, who is the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, because you don't know him, and you thereby you cannot be inspired by him to speak the truth. So you're going to confuse other people, and this is why you
Yes,
should not use the Bible to teach, but come to the Israelite nation and let us share with you the wisdom of our Father, and then you can go out qualified and teach if you need to.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just bear in mind that most of the drugs that you see out there today are from herbs and different forms of vegetation. So
Now,
this is
the
why we
answer to this question, though, Officer Charmaine, is some of these, if not all of them, can be used
yes,
and as medicinal properties. They
yes,
can be used, to be a part of another medicine, another drug, for example. It is
as
not that they should be used in a careless manner. In other words, what I'm suggesting respectfully is the individual should be qualified or under the direction of a qualified physician or nurse, accordingly.
mhm,
That's the point I'm trying to make.
right,
It is not supposed to tear down your health. It is supposed to uplift your health if it
it's
is used correctly, and that's the point.
right. And one thing that you're saying, which is actually very true,
Mhm.
certain properties of these particular herbs, for example, they cause a lot more harm than it
Yes,
does benefit. So that's why it is important to really understand what it is that we are getting ourselves into, especially when it comes to these forms of drugs.
right. And not only that, but some of these drugs, if not all of them, they have an impact generationally. In other words, a father could pass that pattern of behavior on to a child, or a mother could give birth to a child that has been contaminated medically. And sometimes we do them more harm than good. And these are points that we have to take into consideration, because it is not just us, it is the offspring, it is the children. These are very important points.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know the harm that we are causing our offspring. And
That's
you're
right.
absolutely correct.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so you want to take this one away, Elder Michael?
Yes, this is one of my favorite photographs of pictures, because it says cocaine in America, which I abbreviate as CIA. Now, CIA is the first letter of cocaine, the first letter of N, and the first letter of America. Cocaine in America. And you could see that it is protected by the military or some military group, but there have been several documentations
Mm,
that the CIA, the American branch, and I'm not going to get into that because that's political. We're dealing
mhm,
with spiritual matters. They were involved in moving drugs from Asia to the United States. And although they have proven that to be true, we are still not going to use that as a foundational basis for what we are trying to say. Because I've said this 1,000 times. If you were to bring all the liquor stores in my neighborhood, I will not be drinking any liquor. Just because you put it there doesn't mean I have to consume it. Or if I want to buy my liquor, I could go into another neighborhood and buy it, just to show my disapproval of they move in the liquor store. So my point here is leadership and not following. Just
yeah,
because it's there does not mean that you have to participate. If you participate, if it would help you, if it
mhm,
doesn't help you, you leave it alone.
yeah,
That's all that we're suggesting,
yeah.
respectfully. So
Mm,
I'm not blaming an American political organization or military organization. I'm blaming our people, our Jacobites, our ancestors, for following in the habit that is not constructive.
Okay, so Shelby Brown says, Elder Mike, people are now eating it. So is that different?
Again, these are drugs that can be very harmful to your being, not just in this generation, but for generations to come. So if you know this, if you're educated on that part, you should seek medical approval for consumption in any form or fashion. Again, it could be someone, your grandma's, could be someone that could give you advice on this, right? But we should not take it and use it because it's fashionable. That's the point we're trying to make.
I think one of the most something really to consider. What is it actually doing it? Why are you taking it? You
Right,
know, we often understand that there are many herbs, for example, that we can take, you know, make to make us feel better, you know, to make us, you know, have a clearer mind. Maybe we have a cold, or maybe we're sick, and you know, we know that drinking mint tea and ginger tea is great because it helps to improve the immune system. So we understand that, but we also understand that these particular substances messes with your spirit. And you know, okay, so that's not the term that you're going to hear, but it messes with your mind. It messes with how you think, how you portray things, how you perceive things. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. So, yeah, you're not smoking it, but you're eating it. Why? What? Why? Because you've got a sore toe. Why?
right.
Why are you eating it? You know.
So that's a very important point that we document some of these things as well, because when I grew up in the Caribbean, I never seen a doctor or a nurse or hospital until I was like 18. My mom was my doctor. And the reason I'm saying this is because in our backyard, we
Mm,
grew all the herbs, that I would need if I got sick. And my mom would tell me which ones to select, which ones to how to boil it, what to add to it, and how to consume it. I tell the story all along that alcohol, brandy, was in our medicine cabinet at home. And
mhm.
it wasn't in the bar, it was in the medicine cabinet because we knew how to prepare brandy if we had a fever or something of that nature, and how to drink it. So I didn't just go and took a few shots. No, I would,
Right.
so these are things that we have to understand.
One thing that J. Knight Grant said, which is absolutely going towards what you're actually saying, all those are herbs and plants. All those herbs and plants are addictive. And sorry, okay, so she said two things. I'm getting those mixed up. Okay, so all of those herbs and plants are addictive, and pharmaceutical companies now make a profit from it. So yes, that's very true. And she also said that the herbs and plants was used as topical remedies in recent years, and
Right.
that's also true.
Yes.
So we have to really go into what you were saying. Yes, we've
Mhm.
had them. You know, if for example, tobacco leaf was often used if you had a wound in your body. You know, I remember my brother. We were in Guyana, and this is really quite interesting. When he was young, he must have jumped a fence just before he was leaving. He jumped a fence and he impaled himself right near his groin. Oh my goodness. He almost bled to death. But I remember my auntie, she saw him and he was bleeding and bleeding. She almost passed out. I think she ran. And then my grandmother came and she saw him, and you know, she managed to, what she got was tobacco leaf, and she made some kind of poultice from it, and she stuffed the wound with the leaves and
Mhm.
bandaged it up, and he was able to travel. I think it was that same day or the next day he was able to travel. And when he went to the clinic in England, they said, "Oh my goodness, you could have bled to death. This could have, you know, severed an artery." They were surprised at the fast healing as well of the wound, right?
Mhm.
So that was quite incredible because he would have needed stitches upon stitches in order to
Exactly.
close that wound. So it was a puncture, right? Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, tobacco leaf didn't,
Yes.
but they used it for healing.
And again, because they had experience, they had the knowledge. They didn't do this for pleasure. So, and if we go to Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 12, you will see something similar. It says, "And by the river upon the bank thereof,
Mhm.
on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat,"
Mhm.
consumption, in other words,
Right.
which whose leaves shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be
Mhm.
consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issue out of the sanctuary, and the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof shall be for medicine. So
Yes.
we use the leaves.
Look at that. How much more do you need? Look at that. See?
Exactly. That's why I said I did not see a doctor until I was like 18,
Mm.
because my mom was my first doctor. And she knew exactly, because this was passed down to her. She knew exactly what herbs to use, what leaves to use. We ate the fruit, as it says in Ezekiel, and we use the leaves for medicinal herbs.
You see, that's a really, really good point. Even Robin agreed, saying that the herbs were used for sickness, not
Yeah.
for pleasure in her family.
Hmm.
So there is an understanding. If you really go back in our own families, if you really go back, you will see this over and over again, that the herbs that we see out there, they were used. You know, if you had that, they would drink this kind of tea, bush tea for this. It's like, what's bush tea? It's
That's
like,
right. That's right.
they dried and they would drink in the morning, and
Hmm.
they would help you throughout the day. But they were just teas, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even pepper, the fruit,
Mhm.
is a good medicine, has some good medicinal properties, and we always added it to our soups when we had a cold.
Yes.
And it did phenomenal things. We put a little bit of the chicken in there, but the most important things we put were the herbs, and one of those was the hot sauce, the pepper sauce. Anyway.
No, absolutely. It's like these are such a great discussion because
Yeah.
it really takes you back in time and you start to reminisce. You know, I will give another example. You know, I had a brethren come visit me in England,
Mhm.
and he was completely sick. He got the flu or something. He's probably online. Anyways, but he was completely sick. And I remember what my mum taught me and how I grew up. And so I just made him some ginger tea with some lemon,
Yes.
a touch of peppermint. Was it ginger, lemon, peppermint, and honey? Okay.
Yes.
And I said, you drink this. And I told him, dress up really warm, in your tracksuit and get under the covers. And he was like literally dying. It's like, I'm not going to tuck you in bed. You got to get in bed and you got to drink this. And I stood there. It's like, you got to drink it. You have to drink it all. And he drank it. The next morning, I am sleeping. I can hear the dryer going off. And it's like, what the heck's going on? Who's washing clothes this hour of the morning? And I go downstairs and he's up, washing all the bedding, washing all the clothing, everything. It's like, wow. And I'm like, kind of shocked. It's like, gee, that really works. Because I use it on myself and I use it on my family, but you're using it on someone else. And it's like, it's not really the same thing, right? But
Mm.
when I saw it work on him, I was like blown away. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yes. I really wants us to write a book and put in some of the substance. Yes, maybe one day we'll get around to it. It calls for a lot of research, though, because we want to make sure that those remedies are correct and accurate.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
so
So
let's.
yeah, I mean, this is what we're dealing with. Okay, so we saw it clearly that drugs, um, herbs, there are ways of using this, and it's very specific, especially in the scriptures. We talk about history meets prophecy. There's a reason why we use those terms because we look at the world and what the world tells us, but most of the things that they claim is from the scriptures, but it's not. We're showing you what the book says. It's
You,
not
you,
there.
you know what just came to me is so significant is even from the garden. Notice I said garden, the Garden of Eden, right? There were two trees in the garden. There's a tree of life and the tree of good and evil, and we
Yeah,
were told to eat from one and not the other. So
exactly.
again, that analogy goes back to the very beginning. So
Absolutely.
one can say that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was the first and the best physician ever on this planet. So I kind of
Absolutely.
like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a on the next slide. It's okay.
Yes, this is a Coca-Cola. I mean, this is more humor than anything else. But of
Yes,
course, it's still important to know that
right.
the culture at the beginning, or back in the early days, I should say, that culture had drugs in its mixture, and it is not just today where these things are done. Coca-Cola had cocaine, and one can say that the name came from that, but there's cola leaves and so forth, and cola nuts as well. But
Mhm.
the point we're making is it was part of the economic structure of this Western world. And that should be taken into consideration. Like everything else, you have to know what you're drinking or what you're eating. And the medicinal value, or should I say the nutritional value that you're consuming at the time.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of a historical fact. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
Um, so let's look at us, the children of Israel, because this is what we really want to. And when we say children of Israel, we're not just talking about those that's came over during the time of slavery. You know, our forefathers that's come over during the time of slavery. It's anyone that really wants to look at themselves as being part of the God of Israel's family, right?
Hmm.
So how does it affect us? And I think this is the part where we really need to do a deep dive in.
How does it
Um,
affect us spiritually, is what you're asking, right?
as a people, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jay says, before we go on, Jay says, my granny used pepper leaves with warm
Yes.
castor oil for boils. Wow,
Nice.
that,
That's
this is
interesting.
very good.
Yeah. So and usually it's this subject is even getting more exciting to me than when we started. The reason being is because whatever affects us physically also affects us spiritually. As a matter of fact, I would say that the spirit is first and the physical comes last,
Hmm.
because whatever affects you, the way we get sick is because something is wrong spiritually that we have to look at. And
Yeah,
sometimes we don't recognize this, but we go to the hospital or we go to the clinic and we get a pill, and we don't know the impact of this. So it is good to think spiritually first and physically second.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. So you're looking at the leadership roles of Jacob.
right.
So it's clear that
Mhm,
there is a covenant with the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob,
mhm.
right? So if we understand this, then we need to know that there are certain laws, statutes, and commandments that we follow. There is clean and unclean. There is, the laws of separation. There are things that we need to do in order to distinguish ourselves from the rest of the world, and that's why there is a covenant.
Exactly. And notice that we're not saying you can't have this or you can't have that. The question is how much and when and how do you go about doing it? These are very important things.
Yes.
It is not a feel good moment, as it were. It is a respect for our Father. And the Father we're talking about here is our Heavenly Father, who's the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And we have to remember that covenant. The key factor in that covenant is we shall have no other God but Him. And
Absolutely.
if we consume some kind of product that drifts us or causes us to move away from him, then it becomes a problem. Proverbs 3:31, it says, envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the forward, and the forward is usually, well, the forward is an abomination. So you know that that person is committing some act that is not acceptable or violates the covenant, an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. So again, we have, if we look at that as, what should we say, a piece, a jewel, if you will, because from this scripture comes a lot of other behavioral issues. If we address this and keep it as a primary factor, then we would avoid a lot of the other issues that we face today. So
Right.
the question begs itself then, when will the Jacobites stop following the oppressor,
Right.
adopting his evil habits, and then ignorantly promoting the same vanity? This is something that we cannot point to other people. We have to
Mm.
look in the mirror and
Yeah.
see for ourselves what it is that we are doing that is not appropriate.
And this goes right back to the points that you made right at the beginning. And this is to do with drugs in the neighborhood or being filtered through the neighborhood,
Hmm.
regardless of the establishment or the organization that had put it there or
Hmm.
left it there.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, in some instances, it got to the children first, which, of course, that's understandable. But
Hmm.
those that go out of their way to actually, you know, follow the oppressors. Follow the
Yes,
oppressors. He's putting it there for you, and you're following him by taking it.
that's right. And
So,
the question begs itself, of the Charmaine,
yes,
why is he doing that? Why is the oppressor doing that? Now, I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. Elder Shadrach, fantastic job, Elder. Thank you. But Elder was not the first to know that we are Israel.
right.
The enemy knew.
Yeah,
Our Elder Shadrach was the first to do something constructive about it. He
absolutely.
was the first. And as a matter of fact, I can say it again, no one since him has done anything that is constructive.
Yes, Patricia, that's right. Envy not the oppressors and choose none of his ways.
That's
You
right.
you you make that choice.
That's right.
Nobody. Yes, okay, so so and so's on drugs, so and so's doing it, but why are you following them? You don't
Yes.
have to follow them. Nobody's forcing you to do that. And
Right.
that's the problem. Is you go and you have your hard-earned money, and then you go out there to purchase those substances to do the
Yes.
same as he's done. And then you want to turn around and blame him. But why are you following him? That there is a problem there. So
And like you said earlier, Officer Charmaine, they doing something. They moving these things into your neighborhood, and
mhm.
because they know who you are, and they want to remove you from that high status.
They you know what? They've put the temptation in our way.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. They put the churches there.
Yes.
The
Uh,
Christian
the
shrines,
so-called
right?
churches.
Yes,
Yes.
so that's why I couldn't say it. No, but they put the Christian shrines right there and you run to them.
Yes.
They put the gun shops there. You go there, you take it, and you kill your brethren. You go,
Yes.
and who you're blaming, and then you're screaming racism. Why are you
Yes.
screaming racism? And you're taking the same gun and you're killing your brothers and sisters, and you're going to their church, to their shrines. you know,
And not only that, you're absolutely correct 100%. But then they have the audacity to say that Black Lives Matter. Excuse me? That is the most hypocritical behavior I
makes
have ever seen.
it makes absolutely no.
Zero.
That's another rabbit hole to go down, and it makes no sense. And actually, it's an insult what they've gone and done, because
Yes.
it makes us look like buffoons at the end of the day, because we are still killing each other. We're still harming ourselves. We're still going to their shrines, and we're turning away from our God. We're not even turning towards our God. So who's laughing at who?
Exactly. You know, and they, if the person doesn't look like us that happened to shoot the guy that looked like us, everybody is demonstrating and marching and shouting and yelling. But when it looks a guy that looks like me, I don't see none
Yes,
of that unless they're doing it in secret. Suddenly they can't talk. I don't,
yes.
hypocrisy. That's
Yeah,
what I
it
call.
really, it really is, and it's
Yeah,
very, very, very sad.
right.
There's another comment here.
Yeah. James
It's
says, this
yeah,
reminds me when I was younger, we did the same exact thing, Elder Michael and Officer Charmaine. I understand what you are teaching us today. And you see, and thank you, James, for that comment, because notice that we're talking about drugs, but we're looking at the behavioral pattern that
That's what.
led to the drugs habit
Thank you.
and
Thank
tore down everything of the neighborhood from that point on.
It is. I mean, and we can literally go on all day about this because
Yeah,
it's the reason why we are where we are today, following the ways of the oppressors.
that's
We
right.
and this, like I said, it just boggles my mind. We cry racism, we cry Black Lives Matter, but yet still you're following those that are harming you, the oppressor, and you're following his ways. You're choosing to do the things that they do, and then screaming racism. That makes no sense,
Yeah,
and this is it. We know, or we should know, that these things are not for us. That's why we have a law of separation. That's why, if the scriptures speak about the foods that we can eat and the foods that we can't eat, how much more the other things that are not written that
right.
should, there's a scripture that speaks about the end of the law is righteousness. You know, when you think about that, it's you need to, if you know enough of the scriptures, if you understand enough of the scriptures, you're not going to want to do these things to harm your tabernacles, your vessel. You're not
Mm.
going to want to do that, right? So why would you do that?
And
Some people may say, well, what about what about alcohol? Isn't that the same thing? They drink in the Bible. I see wine in the Bible. Yes, of course. But there's a time and place for everything.
that's
There's
right.
a time, and there are people that were actually instructed not to use that.
Yeah,
Specifically
yeah.
instructed not to use it. What about weed being a herb?
I don't understand that.
Mark.
Mark, clarify yourself, Mark, because I'm not getting it. I don't understand it. So, yeah, I mean, it could be a herb, it could be liquid. I mean, it could be anything. But the point is, it's not about what it is, it's how
Would you do it?
we deal with it. How do we consume these things? And the timing, like we said, the quantity, and what else did I said? I forgot the other third. I give 3 points. But anyway, it is how much. That's it. The timing, the quantity, and the duration. I forgot. Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Yes.
So, what are the characteristics of a drug user? What are some of the habits? How do you determine who is doing what? First of all, and I've seen some of these things with my own eyes, they display weakness and allow strangers to dictate their behavior. One of the things about a leader is, like I said, you could take from someone, but you have the final decision. You dictate how it is expressed. You do
Absolutely.
not just follow because it is available. This is why I say to people, because the drugs are in your neighborhood doesn't mean you have to consume them.
Yes.
I walk by a drugstore every day, and I'm not.
And that's
I'm,
the thing. It's everywhere now. Oh my goodness, you'll see more of these drugstores
yeah,
popping up than you would of the liquor stores now. They're
exactly.
everywhere, and it's incredible. Like,
And then the other thing is you have to know how it affects you. And I can't drink a lot. I have to be very, very careful. One glass of wine, I'm good. But if I go for two or three or four, just because it's available, just because I'm partying and having a good time, I'm a mess. So I have to limit myself. And sometimes I get accused for this. I'll pour something else in my wine. All I'm trying to do is negate the impact because I know I can't handle it. So these are important things that you have to understand. You still want to be social, but you don't want to be a problem to the
but
rest of the.
it's more than social engineering, on Michael.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
actually a suppression of the mind. And this
true.
is what people really don't look at. It's when you're serving the God of Israel, and this is a little secret for you guys. When you're serving the God of Israel, you want your mind to be clear. Your mind
Yeah,
needs to be clear, and all of these substance, it has an impact on how you think, and it does it messes with your mind. It's instead of you mechanically opening the door and closing the door because you are serving the God of Israel, now the doors are left on a hinge that can just, like, flaps back and forth
mhm,
because you've given away that control. You've given it away to substances. You suppress the mind. Now the things that would, really make you focus on and think about, the things that really concern you, now that's been suppressed. You don't care anymore. It's like, oh, you just want to chill and have a good time. It's like people will continue living and doing the things that they need to do while you are just chilling.
Right.
Just
And
chilling.
again, we are not in a position to blame other people for our wrongdoing,
Yes.
because and this is why we are here, because we want to make you aware of the circumstances. There are people, yes, if they want to put all these negative things at our disposal, that's on them.
Yes.
Now, you don't have, you could do something, put somebody in and elect an official that will fight against that in the proper place, the Senate or Congress or wherever you want to do it. But my point is, in the meantime, do not partake and teach your children not to partake just because it's cool, allegedly. You
Yes.
see, and that's the key.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yes, you got these cannabis stores everywhere. They've put them in the poorest neighborhoods. They put them especially in the places of the children of Israel, the Jacobites.
Right.
They do. And as you said, Elder Michael,
Yeah.
and can't stop saying it enough. Just
Right.
because it's there doesn't mean you have to partake in it and be
Right.
part of it.
And we have to look at it from their perspective, from the enemy's perspective. The enemy is doing his job.
Okay,
This is what he was supposed to do.
so I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about, we were speaking about the Bible and how that progressed, the history of the Bible and how it progressed, and
Mhm.
how they tried to control it to the point whereby they would not allow us to read it or, to write about it or anything, was to study or teach it. Okay.
Right.
But it got to the point whereby when it was eventually being written and being put out there, they couldn't control it. So they started to flood the market with all different versions of
That's right.
right? So
That's right.
you got the NIV, the newest version of the King James. You got all different versions out there, the Britannica version, everybody's versions out there, right?
Right.
So they start to flood the market. And again, the same thing is happening, right?
Yes.
Try to control these substances.
Yes.
They put it there, right? And they put it there like sweets or candy, right? They put it there and you touch it and then they spank you for it, by putting you into prison or something. And then
Yep.
you go out and you start to, it starts to go into this place and it goes to the places that they don't want it to go, right? To the people they don't want it to go to. And then all of a sudden, they start to flood the market with it because they can't control it. So they flood the market. This is another concept of the Bible being flooded in the market. So now,
Exactly.
and the worst part about it, these substances that are available just around the corner, they are contaminated. They're not in the original or the purest form that they were when they first started to grow in the land.
Hmm.
They've been contaminated. So what is it truly doing to your mind? And you know what? We probably won't even know this until 20 years' time when you see a different generation of people coming up in the world, right?
It's interesting that you brought up that biblical analogy, which is excellent, because it is the same thing with our behavior and who we are as a people, our identity and our responsibility. We are supposed to be leading the world. We are supposed to be teaching them about our God, about what He did for us, how He created the heavens, the earth. Like, we live on a planet, we have no idea how it got here because we are not teaching the world that our Father created this planet. And it's all documented. But because our minds are twisted, we cannot focus anymore. We don't even know who we are. We're calling ourselves African Americans, African Canadians, whatever. It has nothing to do with that. We are Israel, and other people are taking our name and using it, or should I say, misusing it. But the point is, it is because we have vacated the premises. That's why they moved into the house.
Robin says when the first store opened, there was a line going down the block and around the corner. What a sad sight to see.
I'm
Wow.
telling
That
you.
is that
And from what I've heard, Robin, those drugs are not cheap.
yeah. And the worst part about it, even like where we live, there's a school just across the road,
Yes.
and all the children are there. These are children, and they're just lining up there.
Yes. They have to pass the drugstore to get to the restaurant to get their pizza or their chicken or whatever they're having for lunch. And there's a Tim Hortons across the street. So, you can't buy a cup of coffee or tea now before you pass the drugstore. You have to pass the
Oh
gate.
my gosh,
Yeah. Hmm.
this is a sad,
So
sad.
Kadash says fentanyl just literally killed the mother of an,
One
sorry.
of my sons on
Okay.
Friday.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm really, really sorry to hear that. She
Yeah.
thought it was cocaine. Oh my God.
Wow.
Now that's tragic. I'm
Yes.
really feeling that. That's very, that's really emotional, especially, that we're speaking about this thing. And to hear, it's not just us. Listen to everybody else that's speaking. Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing that, because
Yeah.
people need to know this is a real thing. This is not a joke. This is not something to pretend and play around. This
Hmm.
is a real thing. This is a real issue. It's affecting people, and it's affecting our people. And it has more of an effect on our people than it does on any other nation.
That's right. Jay said, yes, Officer Charmaine, I do agree. Drugs will open up your gateway to invite all sorts of spirits. 100%. You
Us.
see, what people have to recognize is we are being watched 24/7. And just because they don't see a camera doesn't mean you're not being watched. Those that are watching us don't have a body generally, but they're watching you anyway. They're tracking you because they want to determine your behavioral pattern. This is all spiritual. They put things in place to trap you. It's not the so-called white man,
Mm.
right? He may do the physical part, but then there's another 60% of people out there who don't look like you or me. Some of them might look like us, and they're doing, but we can't see them, and they're doing what they have to do behind the scenes. Once your mind is contaminated, you become intoxicated
Yes.
through consumption. Once you become intoxicated, then the message from the spirit to the brain is flawed.
Yes. Which spirits? That's what you need to ask.
Exactly.
Which spirit
And
is playing with you now?
exactly. So once that corruption, think of it like a computer. If you get hacked, or if your computer gets hacked, nothing is normal anymore. You gotta, everything is all over the place. So now you're being hacked spiritually,
Yeah.
right? And once you're hacked
That.
spiritually, you can't think straight anymore. And
Yeah.
somebody else from some distance is controlling your behavior.
Yes.
But you can't see them, just like a hacker.
There's
The
a
hacker,
reason why there's spirit and then there's spirit.
exactly. And now your feet can't walk the path of
Mm.
construction. In other words, you can't walk home. You're gonna go to a party somewhere. It may be you're gonna drive maybe 10 miles away to another place because you're not thinking straight, because there's fun there, and at least you think there is. And you're gonna go and check things out that you normally wouldn't check out.
Mm.
So think of it, spirit first, then the physical. And
Yes.
that's how we have to look at these things.
Yeah. Angela said that they done the same thing during Prohibition when they were making moonshine. Anyone knows that moonshine, that was a hit or miss. That really damaged a lot of people's nerves, right? So, and now
Mhm.
they're doing the same thing again. Absolutely. You know.
Yes. Uh,
Um,
who is this?
then we have Patricia. She's a agree. I spoke to a
Absolutely.
security guard at a hospital in the mental health ward who said most of the patients in the psych wards are Jacobites uh, since the legalization of marijuana. See, that is wow. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That guys, listen to that.
I'm not
Most of
surprised.
the, especially since the legalization of marijuana,
Mhm.
most of the patients in the psych ward are Jacobites. And you're
Yeah.
hearing more about people talking about their mental health this and their mental health that. And I'm
Mhm.
not throwing shade on mental health. It's a real thing. People do have their issues, and we're not doctors in that respect. Okay. But think about you don't need a degree, you don't need a medical certificate or go to medical school to understand that this is a real thing. It is affecting our people. It is affecting our people. And look at that.
And
Most of
again,
the look at that. That's really
yes,
incredible.
no, that's a good fact to have. The mental faculties are under the control or influence of the spiritual faculties.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are off mentally, you got a demon somehow that is influencing you one way or another. So these are things that you have to think about. You don't just get up and go to the cannabis shop and buy something without someone putting that idea in your head that this is what you do or what you should do in order to be cool. So this is we're asking you to think through the process a little bit longer and a little deeper so that you could probably take that money and buy some lamb and put it in the oven and make some lamb chops and with your favorite meal, things like that nature rather than the drugs.
So look at our next slide. It actually talks about the impact of drugs on Jacobites. So let's look at that.
Okay. So here are some of these are actual facts, and you can do your own research. Drugs affect the bodies. Well, we talked about that body, soul, and spirit. So to be held high on drugs is not necessarily a good thing. It's a negative spiritual experience,
It is.
and or the preparation for such. So again, we have to be mindful. This is not a time for us to be celebrating. This is a time for us to really sit and make serious research and make some serious notes and share this with the children, because now we see teenagers,
Yeah.
sometimes preteens are using the drugs. They may not be able to buy them, but as you know and we know, just because you can't buy it doesn't mean you can't consume it, right? You can just have your friends do it for you, and then it's just as if you did it yourself. So in the United States, the justice system was slanted against Jacobites. I think this is a point that was made earlier. The
Mm-hmm.
Jacobites continue to ignore the biblical concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that most people would say, they would call this racism. If you get arrested, whether you had drugs or not, and there was a time when the police in the United States will plant drugs on people that look like us. But and everybody was upset. I'm not upset because of that. Listen, we have a covenant. The covenant says if this is what you do, you will get your blessings. If you violate the covenant, you get your curses. So take your pick. And who is going to punish you? Who is going to, you call it racism, who's going to employ that aspect of behavior unless we are doing something that we should not do? Now, here's the thing. If I go out there and I mess up and I violate the covenant, I don't necessarily control the results. In other words, the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? I could do something willfully, violate the covenant, but what about my grandma or a grandmother or a cousin somewhere that I don't know, or some other person that looks like me that also suffer as a result of my behavior?
Mm-hmm.
It is more than just about me. It is about the entire community.
You,
And we have to take that concept into mind.
you know, when you mentioned that, it's a really excellent point because what I believe Jay mentioned this earlier, it becomes addictive, and I think this is the issue with it, the addictive properties, and the addiction leads you to do other things because you want to uh, again get that same type of state of mind. You know,
Right.
there's a dopamine rush when you take these drugs, and yes, it's a rewarding sensation, but then you want this again and again. And apparently this is what I heard, that the first time you've done it and you want to do it again, it's not the same. And then sometimes you try to go on to harder drugs to get the same result. And that's what happens when your spiritual gate is broken. This is what happens. You start to find other ways. And sometimes that leads you to criminal activities such as raiding your grandmother's purse, or stealing from your uncle, or relatives or friends or family, or strangers for that matter, just so that you can sell it to get that same kind of spiritual height, because that's what it is. You're trying to
Yeah.
get a degree of spirituality from this, and it's not working, and it can't work, and it's going to fail, because you no longer have control. You no longer have control on opening that door. The hinges to that door is broken. It needs repair. So
It is such a good point, Officer Charmaine, because number one, 90%, if I could say this, of the people that are purchasing have no idea of the effects.
mhm,
And the key I'm making here, the point I'm making here is, just because I got high doesn't mean, and I had a great time, doesn't mean you're going to have the same effect.
right,
Your
absolutely.
body and your soul and your spirit is different from mine. Maybe
Yes.
I could handle it, right? But
Mhm.
you cannot. It's going to take you in a different direction because your system is different. This is a point that we don't think about when
Yes.
we're consuming things like that. The behavior, the consequences of what we do. I might think, well, like you said earlier, let me try fentanyl now,
Right.
uh, or whatever,
Stronger.
because
Yes.
I'm taking it to another level,
Right. But no,
right?
no, you're taking it to, you're literally trying to get to that same high that you had before. You're literally
Okay.
it's like the first impact was just wow. But
Yeah.
you can't get it after that. And so
Hmm.
you get more and more, you take it for longer, you take it all day, and
Hmm.
then it leads you to places that you would never dream of. Oh, I have to steal in order to get it, because now my bank account is gone. I've got overdraft like crazy. I have a family. The worst part, you have a family. You can't afford to feed them properly, because you need to feed your habit, which is no longer giving you the result that it gave you right at the beginning. You are left in a continuous cycle that is deadly.
Negative
You
and
know?
deadly. And not only that, and that's so good. Now, what impact is your behavior having on the rest of your family? And how do they deal with this? You might be able to handle it, but
Okay.
just because you handle it doesn't mean I have the ability to handle it. I gotta go steal. I gotta go now and hit somebody, hijack a car or whatever these things do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Did you to your point right here, Patricia says, we
Yeah.
had a case here the other day where 8 young girls, ages 13 to 16,
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
killed a man for a bottle of liquor. My
Wow.
goodness. Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
13 to 16.
Teen
I
children.
didn't drink until I was like 18.
Those
How are
are
they doing this?
children. My goodness, what are they doing? How are you going to kill somebody for some?
You see,
Wow.
this is the point we're trying to make here. And now today, because I'm high and I'm dressed in $12,000 sneakers, I could take pictures, a selfie, and post them on the anti-social media, and people would think I'm cool. And but actually, I'm not cool. I'm high as hell. And
Mm.
notice I said high as hell. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but it is true. You see, because hell is below. And so my point is, always be mindful. We have to be mindful of the impact of our behavior on other people who may not be strong enough to deal with it as we did. And then the entire community becomes contaminated. And guess what? Then we blame racism. We blame the white man for things that we've done ourselves.
Therein lies the reason why we are bringing these kind of points to light. I'm
Yes.
sure you'll find something like this, or what. Actually, you probably won't find anything like this. But
Hmm.
the reason why we're bringing these things to light is that when I know, when you know, when our friends and family know the same thing, then we can try, educate our children, which
That's
are
right.
really suffering. They become the victims now,
Yeah.
right? But we all know we can learn to educate them in a way that is positive and that is conducive to them learning that this stuff is not for you. It is
Yes.
not for you. You
And
see,
and
try it, but it's not for you.
to your point, that could be the a light can go on in your son's or your daughter's head if you have that conversation at home, because
Mhm.
now your son is like, you know what, I could study to become a doctor because now I could learn about the nutritional value of certain components, of certain products. You see what I'm saying? Now you've triggered something in the
Right,
children, something constructive as opposed to be something destructive.
right.
And this is why it is necessary that we educate and that we set the example, that
Ye
we teach and we lead and never follow.
Yes,
Because then, instead of tearing apart the community, and it will be torn apart from one drug user, we could enhance the community. You know,
exactly.
I feel so bad sometimes when I see the other communities and they share their money, they build, they buy houses, they start businesses, they do all of these wonderful things. But what do? We buy guns and drugs and alcohol, and
So
we shoot each other.
again, this is one way of helping out to educate our children because it's not easy for them. It
Yeah,
is not easy for them. And the more we are able to express to them that as a spiritual people, we cannot be partaking in these kind of things, this kind of behavior, because it is not conducive to us. We can't thrive or survive by taking this. Actually, it moves us away from our objective, which is to serve our God in spirit and in truth, right? So, how are you serving our God in spirit when you are contaminating your spirit with these substances? And, God forbid that they do try it, because they are out there in the world and they go to universities and college and they are open to all kinds of influences. God forbid they do. We pray that, what? They will
yeah,
it will click and they will turn around and it is not easy. And some people they go down it because maybe they are feeling depressed or whatever the case is. They turn to these things, and it is very sad that you have to find yourself in that mode. But we pray that even if you are there, that you will come back, that you will come out of that and you'll come back, because the awareness will help you to remedy that situation. But without the awareness, you will continue down that road to nowhere.
absolutely correct. Because again, we are 70% spirit.
Yes.
70.
Yeah.
So
And
if
that's
you're
a huge
70,
difference.
yeah, if you're 70% spirit, it means that your top priority should always be spiritual. If you're putting that priority on the way you look,
Mhm.
then you are defeating yourself, defeating. But if you put it on the way you think, this God you serve, meaning the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, then you are looking forward as opposed to looking backwards.
So Jay says the chemical properties of all drugs, whether it is pharmaceutical or street drugs, affects people differently. And
Yes,
one thing I want to say to this, because you mentioned a really good point, Jay. When you are taking something, a painkiller, for example, you're taking a painkiller for your big toe. It's been throbbing. Maybe you got an ingrown nail or something and it's throbbing, and you take a painkiller. It goes to your mind. It doesn't go to the toe. It goes to your mind. It goes up here. And
right.
this is where all drugs, it all goes up here. And you're right. Each
Yeah,
one of them affects you differently. So it
right.
doesn't matter what you're doing. It goes up here first.
But
Okay?
not only, yeah,
So
first,
it affects the spiritual first. It,
and then the mind
right.
sends a message to the toe.
Right. So it affects your spiritual first before the
Yeah,
physical.
yeah,
So remember this, even when you're going, for a surgery and they have to put you to sleep, it's okay, you know what, that's probably a little bit too deep.
yeah, yeah.
But
Let's leave it.
yeah, it is. Right
Let's
now it is.
let's
But
look
it,
at
it
the next
affects the
slide.
spirit, it affects your mind. So
Yeah,
yeah, let's go to the next slide.
yes. This is very, very significant.
Yes.
And I'll let you handle that, Officer Charmaine.
Please look
Yeah,
at the pictures. Look
yeah.
at the pictures very clearly. There's a
Hmm.
statement here, and we found this online. There is a strong connection between the sadhus or Hindus, Hindu holy men. I'll put that in brackets. Uh, please don't explain, Elder Michael.
No, I'm leaving it alone.
Yeah, okay. And the Rastas' use of ganja. Now,
Yes.
the word here, it sounds like ganja, but the first word is actually ganga. Ganga. And the word Ganga comes from the Hindu river, the Ganges.
Yes.
Okay. So we have to understand that there is a strong
Link.
connection.
Yeah.
And the reason being, the East Indian actually brought over the smoking of ganja. They brought over the
Yes.
smoking of ganja to the West Indies or
Careful.
Caribbean, right? So,
Yes.
and this happened during a time when they were taken over there as indentured servants
Right.
after the abolition of slavery. So you're looking at a tradition that came from another culture, and that's not a bad thing because sometimes we borrow traditions, as you said. Sometimes we borrow people's words and what have you. But the thing is, this is a form of worshiping their God.
Right.
Okay, so
That's where they made the mistake.
this is a form, this is what they had to do or what they do to worship their God.
Right.
It helps them to get into a meditative state. And
Yes.
any way possible, they use this. They after they smoke, they will probably go and do their yoga or do their chanting or whatever it is that they do, which is fine because they are worshiping their God.
And Officer Charmaine, to your point,
It's like if it's an instruction for them to do this for their God, we don't have such instructions. So what
right.
does that mean we're doing when we actually partake in that? Whose God are we
Exactly.
worshiping?
Now, to your point, though, it is important that we understand that. Well, first of all, let me address this. Notice it says this is from the east, so you have East Indies, and they came to the west. That's why they called it West Indies,
Mhm.
right? So you can see that culture came. Now, as you said, after slavery, they came and they dominated. They were primarily in Jamaica, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago. This is where they came, and they brought that pattern with them. They had the culture for thousands of years. They knew exactly what to do, how to do it, and probably when to do it. Because, as you said, they're serving a God that is their God that works for them. They came, and we, the Jacobites, especially the Rasta, we embraced that concept without understanding.
Mhm.
And that has been our downfall. We decided to follow rather than to lead,
Yeah.
you see. And the issue with the here, notice they have the locks the same way we have the locks.
Yeah.
Um,
So
you could,
so this is kind of questionable because someone would want to say, who did it first? Was it them or us?
I'm saying I'm going with them first.
Right. You know what? It was, if you understand what it is that these guys did, the sadhus or the so-called holy men, the Brahmins, whatever, they would leave themselves, they would not attend to their physical. They they forget their physical. So however their hair grew, it grew. Some people had locks, some did not. But that's how this was part of their worshiping. So
Mhm.
one, they forgot their physical. They didn't care about how they looked or what they wore or what they did. So it's a physical state which is careless basically, and they try to enhance their meditative state by smoking. So you've got these two together, which gave them this appearance of this matted look and the smoking of ganja. And that was to worship their God. And I'm not saying whether it's wrong or right. That's what they do. That's their
Right.
instructions. You know, alter them. That's fine. But
Yes.
for us, for the children of Israel, these were not the instructions that we were given. And some
That's
say to me, well, what about the locks? And you're wearing locks, and how could you say that? Okay, there is a difference between what I have, for example, and what someone like they would have. You know, mine is not left to grow anyhow, right? It's maintained. It's done in a certain way that it is maintained, and our forefathers did wear locks. We even read it in the scriptures that they had locks. I mean, Samson had 7 locks. I mean, how much more? How clearer do you need? 7 locks does not mean 7 strands of hair. He had 7 locks, right? But
exactly.
yeah, it's about, it's maintenance. I look after mine. They don't care. It's okay, and that's okay. Like I said, it's not for me to judge them. In them worshiping their God, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But for us to do what we're supposed to do, we can't look like that, and we can't do that. We just can't.
I agree. And this is why I strategically let you deal with this, Officer Charmaine, because I don't have my locks.
In addition to that, many people refer to that as dread. This is not dread, as I always
Exactly.
say, as I remember my elder first said it, there is nothing dreadful about your hair. Why would you say that? You know what, you're right. There is nothing dreadful about what I have. So why would I call it dreads? There's nothing
That
dreadful.
is that is true. And it looks very nice, whereas they tend to leave theirs in a, the key point though is that they got their locks through serving their God. That's very important. So they're rewarded for having that, however you want to describe it.
I
You
like
know,
this.
yeah. So we don't do that.
I
All
don't
right.
even can't even see my glasses here. Anyway, but it says 30. This is from Sea Fields. It says
Okay.
33% of us blaming others for where they are. 33 continuing to try to fit in this corrupt system, and then 33 acting like their kids. I'm in the 1% following Elder Shadrach and the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Amen.
Lost
I
no
like that.
more.
Yeah. Very good. No, that's true. Because we lead and not follow. And Mo Gamer says the amount of pharmaceuticals in our drinking water in the United States is off the charts. There is no regulations on it and only addresses in independent studies of our water. How can we avoid this? I agree with you. They are terrible. The only thing I can suggest, and I'm not an expert on that, on this matter, but what do you call that? A distillation system?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where you can buy a portable distillery.
Filter, yes, a filter distinct.
Filtration. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And it's like, again, it goes back to awareness. Once you are aware of the situation, then you try your best to do something about it,
Yeah.
whether it be buying filtered water or bottled water, or, getting a system put into your homes. You do what you can with what you've been
What you
given.
got. Yeah.
Sometimes it is difficult, but
Yeah.
it's about the awareness.
Yeah.
You don't automatically, well, just because it's,
Right.
bad water, then I'll just drink anything. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You just do what you can when you know what you know.
Yeah. But you would have to, more gamer, you will have to get the filtration system. There are portable ones out there that
Yeah,
remove a lot of unhealthy components.
yeah.
But we have to go on to the next slide because we're running out of time.
Right, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So here's another shot of the connection between
Yes.
the East Indian and the West Indian. One is serving their God, doing a wonderful job in the East, but we in the West, we're supposed to serve the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and that's where
Exactly.
we fail most of
And
us.
that really is the bottom line. That really is the bottom line. And you
Right.
know what? I think I really want to go to the next slide, because now we want to look at what it means to be spiritually high when it comes
Yes,
to being an Israelite, or
that's
if you read in the scriptures, because there is a thing called a spiritual high, and it
that's
is possible to obtain it without all of those substances. And that is the beauty of understanding, of having this understanding, even knowing the truth, even, understanding the scriptures, reading the scriptures, being at the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, listening to our elders' lessons. You can get. I was on a spiritual high yesterday. Oh my gosh.
yes.
Oh my goodness. On a spiritual high yesterday. And that was just incredible. And this was just from attending a service and a feast. And it was so absolutely
Yeah,
incredible. Absolutely. You
right.
become so emotional. And sometimes it lasts so long. And it happens so often when you're reading scriptures. Who would have said, who would have thought it's possible, to be around brethren, and to have this euphoria when you're worshiping the same God with the same spirit? That is a spiritual high. Anyways.
And another way to describe the spiritual high is, the tears, or the
Yes.
singing, or the dancing, calling your God by name. That's
Yes,
important, right?
absolutely.
But
And we're not
you
talking
don't have to
about
be puffing to get spiritual high. No.
absolutely. We don't need substances, and it's a great place to be, and it makes you feel good. I mean, when you read the Psalms, it talks about meditation all the time. It's like, wow, when you think about meditation, what is it? It's song and dance and praising our God and actually having that understanding. When the understanding actually unfolds in your mind and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. Just a word or a few words knitted together to give you that high. That's so incredible.
So let's look
Oh,
at this First
yes.
Samuel
Yeah.
14. It says, "And when the people were come into the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in the honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. So he
Okay.
got high, but
You got
where
very
is the drug, the puffin?
yeah. Where is this? Okay, first and foremost, where is the drugs? There's no
Yeah,
drugs. There was
no
honey,
drug.
honey.
Honey.
Anyways, but
Yeah,
the beautiful thing is understanding this entire scripture. These guys had just come back from battle. They
yeah,
come back from battle. Not only did they come back, they were victorious.
right.
And King Saul, I don't know what was happening. Well, at this time, he was losing his mind. That's the only way I can actually put it. He was losing his mind to the point whereby he said to the people, if any of you eat anything after this battle, after we've gone and we slaughtered everyone, if you eat anything, you'll be cursed. Cursed be you. And it's like, who would do that? This is a time for celebration and a time
Celebration.
for
Yeah,
victory, right?
yeah.
So Jonathan's gone out there. He didn't hear what his father said. So he's out there. It's like, oh my gosh, look, we just won. We slaughtered the enemy. And it's like, look at the honey. It's nice and glistening. It's like, yes, he just put forth his rod and he took it. And his eyes just like, wow, it must have felt so good. He's
Mhm.
on a high already because of the battle. You guys that are athletes, you know that feeling when you're running the race, the exhilaration. So he's just finished the battles and his eyes are just like, oh my gosh, it was wow. And then the people look at him, not only are they fainting, they're probably sickly, after spending all their energy and they can't eat anything. And they look, it's like, oh my gosh, you just disobeyed your father. He said no one's allowed to eat anything. It's like that was just a crazy situation I had to bring up. So
It makes a lot of sense, because if the honey can make you high, now does that mean that we go to the store and get 3, 4 bottles of it each?
it's a system, it's a process.
Exactly, and the environment and all of these things.
Yes,
It's not the honey,
it's not the
right?
honey, but it's
Exactly.
him. It's his state of mind. He's just
Yes.
wow. He's
And
reveling.
most importantly, whom he is serving.
Who
That
is he serving? That's exactly. Oh my goodness!
yes,
Wow, this is. I love that. That
yeah,
was to me. It was like looking at the highs and the low, highs and low, and
yeah,
of this particular story, because it is an unfortunate situation, a very sad story. But at the same time, you see a man who's just finishing battle, just finishing, giving you you're fighting for your life so the enemy does not take your life and you become victorious. You want
right.
to celebrate. This is the perfect time to celebrate. Look at that.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. We're running out of time.
Yes.
And this is another example of a
One
spiritual
is
high.
incredible. Guys, you need to get your Bibles
Yeah.
or
Or make a
actually
note and you can
notes.
read it later. What
Yeah,
I'm going to do, I'm going to read as much as I can.
Yes.
for our audience today.
Yeah.
This
I'm
is
going to
one of,
allow you to read it first
yeah.
before we interject, because I know if you know me, I'm going to want to interject so
Well,
badly.
I'll
But
stop at certain points and
okay.
then
All right.
yeah, and we
Okay.
could discuss. Yeah.
All
So
right.
this is to me is one of my favorite scriptures anyway. Okay, Acts chapter 2. I start at verse 1. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all in one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with one tongue. Well, sorry, with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. And they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Jews, devout men out of every nation under the heaven. Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own tongue.
So, Elder Michael, we have to give examples because people take this scripture and it's completely out of context,
Okay.
completely crazy. Understand what's going on here. Now, these are the apostles and the disciples. They're in one
Yes.
place. They've come together. They've just they understand about the resurrection. They're in one place. They are learning about this great thing that's taking place. This is the time of Pentecost. Something great is taking place.
Right.
So they're in one place and they find themselves, oh, Michael, you're speaking Greek and I'm speaking Dutch. And
Hmm.
you're praising the God of Israel in Greek. I've never heard it before in my entire life. And I'm
Hmm.
speaking Dutch and I can only communicate, the God of Israel's name in Dutch. But you've never heard it before. You've never heard me speak this before, but this is my natural language, right?
Right.
But I am understanding your Greek and you are understanding my Dutch. This is what this is saying.
That's right.
This is exactly what this is
That's
saying.
right. That's right.
Everybody here is understanding
Each other.
each other in their own language. It's like, oh
Right.
my gosh, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't know
Mhm.
your language.
Right.
This
It,
is
it
a miracle.
it is very important because the scripture says, "Where two or more are gathered in my name, they will I be also." So they're under the same spiritual umbrella,
They
which
are in the church. They are the church.
right. And that umbrella allows them to communicate. It's a father watching over his children. And this is very important. Anyway, let's continue some more.
Okay.
Where did I number? Okay. So let me start from verse 6. Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own tongue. And when they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are these all the sorry, are not all these which speak Galileans?
See?
And yeah,
See? They were speaking, everybody, they know these guys to speak this language. Then
right,
how is it that I'm Dutch, I can actually understand what this guy's saying? This That's
exactly.
crazy.
And Galilean is just another word for Israelite,
Right.
right? And now, and how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? How do we understand what they all saying? Parthians, Medes, Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea, Cappadocia, and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, and Egypt, and all parts of Libya about Cyrene, strangers of Rome, Jews, proselytes, and Cretes, Arabians. We do hear them speak in our own tongues, the wonderful works of God. So
Wow.
that understanding, that spirit of understanding is there,
Yeah.
regardless of how it is expressed. Verse 12. And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying one to another, What meaneth this? Others mocking said, These men are full of wine.
Okay.
But
And again, look at this. Look what's happening. Right.
yes,
They
yeah,
are speaking, people are understanding. This is like, whoa,
yeah,
this is insane.
yeah, this is
And
crazy.
notice that they are not barking like dogs. They're not
Yes,
doing cartwheels, running up and down the place.
yeah,
They are not doing any of these things, right? Which you may hear in other establishments when they talk about speaking in tongues.
Right.
They are not barking. They're not rolling on the floor, or cooing or meowing or whatever it is that they do. And then
Hmm.
there's not someone else, talking some kind of gibberish, and somebody else is like saying, "Oh, I know what that means. A hooba hooba, that must mean this." Or no, this is an actual language that's being understood by someone else that speaks that language.
Hmm.
Remember, not dogs rolling, not people racing from one end of the room to the other, or with their eyes rolling back and they're falling down, or a state of drunkenness where you'll see people, you've seen a drunk person, they can't walk straight, they're like tipsy, they say and do stupid things, right? They are not in this state. Keep
Hmm.
reading up, Michael.
Right. So, but Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said unto them, Ye men of Judea, and all ye that dwell at Jerusalem, be this known unto you, and hearken unto my words. For these are not drunken as ye suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day, but this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaids, maidens, I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. You see how we said earlier how it is important that this whole process, this behavioral process, is generational. What you do, and your children will follow, because they're now the drug dealers of today, so to speak. And we have to be careful. How did they learn this negative behavior? How did they learn not how did they know, or they don't know, as a matter of fact? That's what I'm trying to say, that they're Israelites, that they should be serving the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, because their parents did not know.
Yes, you're right. And the beautiful thing is, they were in a situation where they can actually receive the Spirit of God, the right
Yes.
spirit. And it
Yes.
says that the Spirit of God was upon them. That's
Yes.
why they were able to do what they were able to do.
Right.
No drugs necessary. Anyways,
Because the Christ had already said it, that he said, You wait for me, don't leave, and wait in this place in Jerusalem, because I'll come. And this is a part of that process. Because had they said, he's taking too long, I can't wait forever, and decide to leave, they would have missed out on this wonderful occasion. You see, here is a fascinating story, because I mean, I know we're talking about drugs, but I'm getting carried away here. That spirit that destroyed the people, if you will, and scattered them from the days of Babel, is now bringing them together in the days of Peter and the apostles at Jerusalem. Beautiful experience. And this is what people have to understand. The story is unfolding. This is another chapter from the
yeah.
beginning, in the days of the Garden of Eden. And the only place that you will get the full picture is with the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Seafield said, "Thank you, Elder Shadrach, for bringing all of us back together with the
Yes.
truth of our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and God of Jacob." There
Yes.
can never be enough thanks to Elder Shadrach. I absolutely agree. And
Amen.
many, many people, Elder Robin, Felicia, you know, you guys understand. Thank you, Jay, for especially for your comments and your input. Really appreciated. But we understand, we do thank our Elder Shadrach for giving us this truth, giving us this understanding, so that we can dwell in the spirit of truth, so that we can abide as one, and receive the spirit of truth. And we have our God's name, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And this is such a great thing to have. This unites us, and we don't need to go out there and seek to that spiritual high. Come to the nation and listen to our lessons,
And
because
get that spiritual high.
it has
Yeah.
the spiritual high that you need. It
Yeah.
has all of it. You just have to allow yourself to receive this understanding.
So what I'm hearing from you, Officer Charmaine, and it's beautiful, is yes, we have to be high, okay? But there's a spiritual, or there is a physical. The spiritual would enhance your life and lift you up and give that generational, what's the word I'm looking for? Heredity, heritage on that you can pass on to your children, that they too may come and serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Or you have a choice. You could go and be a drug dealer. You will get the same high. You'll make a lot of money. Well, I shouldn't say the same because it's different, right? One is physical, one is spiritual. Well, technically, they're both spiritual, right? One is evil spirit, and the
Yes,
other
and
is
that's
Holy
a good
Spirit.
point. That's a very,
Yes,
very good point.
yes,
So we're talking about.
yes. Thank you, Felicia, for your donation. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
But
thank you, Felicia. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
but you know, out of this presentation, you see how the world works. You see that the spirit, the evil spirit, is there trying to counteract the Holy Spirit.
Yes,
Obviously, you know, there is going to be some measure of success on both sides, but
yeah,
the final word is with the Holy Spirit, which is the spirit of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. We have to come to that awareness. We have to come to that understanding. And with
yes.
that, we could be strong enough to return home to our Father's house, which is the Israelite nation, worldwide
Worldwide
ministries.
Ministries. Amen to that. Thank you, everyone. It was
Yes,
great having you out today. Once
yes,
again, please don't forget to like, comment, share, or subscribe. Fill out the questionnaire below if you want someone else to get in touch with you. If you have any comments or questions, please add them as well to the chat or to the discussion here.
yes.
And we will surely get back to you, and we want to continue our discovery of history meets prophecy. Thank you to our moderator. Thank you to our elder. Thank you, Elder Michael.
Thank
Thank
you, Officer Charmaine. Amen.
you. Okay.